哎，大家好，我们现在开始讲一下这个 C 加加的这个 introduction，就是简介我希望就是通过这门课呢，然后给大家实现一个系统的学习一个 C 加加的课程，因为学习计算机的话，它的基础就是在数学计算机只是帮我们快速实现一个数学最基础的一些个概念，然后它并没有什么神通，所以呢，在学习这个语言的过程当中，这个计算机语言的过程当中呢。嗯，首先要把这个数学的基础一定要打好我呢会在其他的视频里面会把这个pre-cal，也就是在高中国内的应该是初高中时期这种数学把它给打清楚，然后这个视频呢是有助于大家去参加国内的高考或者说中考这些内容都有涵盖。然后接下来我还会录一些视频，是关于这个微积分，嗯，还有这个应该是partial differential equation 在国内应该是怎么说呢？叫偏微分方程啊。就是微分方程和偏微分方程，它们应该算是属于一块儿的。我是都会把这个视频录起来。然后还有，linear algebra 说在那个就是线性代数，在计算机的这个初阶过程当中也是非常重要的。然后希望大家能够学习。然后再讲一门计算机的基础里面，我希望尽量能够以最短的视频，差不多2到3分钟或者说是3到5分钟吧，因为有些内容稍微比较复杂一点，就有3到5分钟，然后给大家尽量就是比较清楚的去讲一下这个 C 加加，然后因为现在大家都比较忙，然后你们在学的过程当中呢，能够就是比较有针对性的，然后去学习这个课程，在学的过程当中呢，我希望你们能够把这个练习能够把自己的电脑打出来，然后我们现在形成一种机械性的记忆。数学的视频我会不停的更新，然后计算机的视频，然后是以 C 加加还有 Python。这是我两门我的主要语言，然后 Java 的其实并不是我的主要语言，但是 Java 也算是属于我的第二副语言。我的最主要精通的就是 C 加加和 Python，这两门是我工作上面以及面试刷题的时候是必须的。现在再给大家介绍一下，就是在北美现在就业的情况一下，就是首先中国人在面试的过程当中，的确是会比其他族裔被要求的会多一点，因为原因我就不说了，好吧，个人有个人的见解那么就是说我们在学习的过程当中呢，这个基础一定要打牢一旦你拿到了工作以后呢，然后这个是工作上面可能应用的，就是要具体案例具体学习。在讲课的过程当中呢，我是要用英语讲的，当然会有中文字幕。我们在中国的可能英语程度不是好，不是特别好，但是如果你是想来美国上岸的话，我觉得就是说这个英语的话也要跟上，嗯。那我毕竟是在美国上学嘛，所以我对中文我不能说我不了解，但是我是更倾向于用英语来给大家授课，而且我还有很多美国的听众，还有一些学生然后还有的这个日本的一些朋友，我可能会单独录日语，因为日本人的这个日语水平相对来说会比较弱一点。我在大学里面当老师，我也当了有个3、4年了，基本上是教算法还有数据结构。嗯，还有教 compiler，就是编译器，我也教过。但是编译器的话，我觉得你不是在美国上美本的话，我觉得你在这个转码的过程当中，好像它当然是对你这个计算机的这个学习是非常有帮助，让你知道为什么我们要这么操作。这个计算机的这个 compiler，它是怎么去编译你的语言的。怎么去实际去操作是实心的是，但是就是在具体你在找工作的，可能它这个就是太深奥，可能是因为太这个书本化了，可能应用并不是很广泛。那有兴趣的大家可以就是我在讲课的过程当中可以给大家带一下。然后这个 compiler 这门课的话，除非你是在美国上美本，或者说你是计算机专业的，这样的话是必须要求的。但是就说如果你是，单纯只是想要转码的话，那我觉得没有什么太大的必要，就不涵盖了。那我们现在就第一节课讲最简单的，就是比较直接。我这个人比较直接我就是用 C 加加的第一课，the first class，没有学姐我现在是特别讨厌就是这个学姐就是不想看到这个学姐，还有什么学长LinkedIn 大家看到都烦死了我看到学姐我都来气，我就觉得，这个你学姐能不能干点人事儿，好吧？不管你背后的到底是学长还是学姐，OK？So now let's just do the introduction of C++. So for the first class, we just cover the basic concept of C++ programming. All kind of language is going to be almost like the same. So it's going to be C++, Python, or C Sharp or Java. So which is closest of these two? So it's going to be C Sharp and Java. So in programming, in language, is going to be almost like the same. The C++ is more like a compiler. So when the compiler of compiling the whole code is going to be compiling the whole code rather than, so those are the transcripts. So the scripts like Python is going to be going, the compilers literally just go line by line. Okay. So sometimes when you compile like a Python language, it's going to be, maybe this code is not going to work at this point, but it's going to be compiled not until like it actually execute on this actual code, and then the terminal will give you some errors and saying like, okay, this is not going to work and for this specific line. But if it's not going to work for C# and Java, because those are more like a script, so it's going to be compile of the overall. So once you compile over overall, that means if one thing is wrong in your code on C++ and Java, it's going to compile. So you have to make sure that it's going to compile first, and then it's going to be execute. So for the programming language, it doesn't mean that your language is compiled. That's only the first step, but there should be a lot of logical errors or bugs. The so-called bugs is going to be the bugs of the computer science is going to be the first thing is going to be what errors that literally strictly tell you in your terminal. That is the error that you can exam like straightforward, but there were going to be some logical bugs that basically you don't know. So there should be some like a software testing group that have to be involved if it is going to be a big program. And then usually if it is a small programs that basically can just scan it and then examine it by your eyes or just by a couple of testing with some input, and then you can just examine by the output. However, so those are not really like very difficult. So what is really very, very tricky and then very, very large that is happening, which is called logical bug or logical error. So when you design your program or you design your so when your algorithm, that probably going to give you some potential errors that can cause the potential mistake that cause a huge mistake if it is a financing related software. For example, if you're designing some cybersecurity or whatever transition for a bank, let's see, they're going to be involved a lot of logical testing. So what if one single error is going to happen? It's going to cause the whole system is going to collapse. That means the institute or agency is going to losing huge amount of money because of the logic bugs that are existing there. So that means, so when we're designing the program, the first thing that we have to take is, if it is short, then we basically can just visualize the eyes and to say some input and outputs the exam. However, if it is going to be a huge program or a huge project that you're doing for your future, for example, a job or whatever you design for your school project, for your graduation, let's see. So those things that you got to be very careful about how you design your algorithm, and then the logic has to make sense. So C++ is actually very much involved in the game design. but also for Python, it's going to be Java is also for the um, web developer that some of them use Java, and then web developers that most likely just to use JavaScript. So whatever languages is going to be, doesn't really matter. It's just some like basic um, language is going to be itself. The habit is going to be the different, but the statements, so like a if-else statement, for loop, and while loop, those are the same. Okay, and then it doesn't matter which language you're choosing to start with, and as long as you're at choose your main language to pass the interview, and later on you can just work on the language that is required by your work agencies, by your company or your managers. It depends on what project you're working on. Okay, and then the next is we can just do very simple like how to create like a C++ and then a file. So you have to be eligible of choosing which ID that you want to use. So just to recommend VS Code for which is designed for Microsoft. So VS Code is very powerful. So most of the software developers they choose to use ID of VS Code. So when I was in school, we used VS Code only. Okay? And then after that, it's just the design is just save as a .cpp once you just wanted to save. I'm going to show you some examples. And then always remember that you can have an ID that is online ID. I can just recommend you. So where you can just go on Google. So when you just go Google, just say GDB. That is very useful online compiler. So basically, this is also very simple that you don't have to actually execute your code by open your terminals. If you're doing like a small project, this only involve for learning process of a language. This is actually the best tool that for you to execute, because every time if you choose like a C++, if you use VS Code, that you have to every time compile, and then you have to type the compile G++, compile like command, and then you need also to execute the code is going to be like a little bit time consuming. And then for the VS Code, that you have to go to the Google and download VS Code, and then just go to the website. It's going to be download options, that you just go here and then just download for Windows. If you are a Mac user, that probably there's going to be a web for the Mac user option. I would recommend you just when you use Windows, it's going to be the compiling command is going to be a little bit different. So here I already have downloaded, and then we just have a couple of testings. So this is a basic line of how you can just so when you open a new file over